The marriage counselor's office smelled like vanilla candles and broken dreams. I sat there watching my wife Naya fidget with her wedding ring, sliding it up and down her finger like she was testing how easily it might come off permanently. Dr. Martinez droned on about communication patterns while I calculated how much this 50-minute session was costing me. $68 per minute to watch my marriage dissolve in real time. "Evan, you seem distracted," Dr. Martinez said, her pen hovering over her notepad like a vulture. "Just thinking about work," I lied. Actually, I was thinking about how Naya had been coming home at midnight 3 times this week, claiming overtime at the marketing firm. Funny thing about marketing firms, they don't typically require their account managers to work past business hours unless there's a crisis, and Naya hadn't mentioned any crises. "Work is important," Naya said, shooting me a look that could freeze coffee. "But so is our relationship." Our relationship. Like it was some precious artifact we were both equally invested in preserving. The truth was, I'd been doing most of the preserving while Naya had been doing most of the taking my patience, my money, and apparently my trust. After the session, we walked to our cars in silence. The parking lot felt like a neutral zone between 2 warring countries. "Dinner at Mom's tonight," Naya said, not looking at me. 7 sharp. Aria Venton, my mother-in-law, the woman who treated me like a necessary evil in her daughter's life. Every family dinner was a performance where I played the role of the inadequate husband while Aria played the disappointed matriarch. "I'll be there," I said, because refusing would give Naya ammunition for the next counseling session. I drove back to our apartment in Edgewater Heights, the place we'd bought together 2 years ago when we still believed in forever. The building was nice enough. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, the kind of place that looked impressive to visitors but felt hollow when you lived there. Miles was waiting in the lobby, sprawled across one of the leather chairs like he owned the place. My best friend since college, Miles had the gift of showing up exactly when I needed him most, usually with a 6-pack and terrible advice. "You look like someone just told you Santa isn't real," he said, standing up. "How was therapy?" "Enlightening," I said. "Like watching a nature documentary about the mating habits of divorce lawyers." We rode the elevator to the 14th floor. Miles had been warning me about Naya's family for months, particularly about Bryce Vandell, the personal trainer who'd been spending an unusual amount of time helping Naya with her fitness goals. According to Miles, Bryce's reputation around town was less about fitness and more about helping married women work out their frustrations. "You know what your problem is?" Miles said as we entered my apartment. "I'm sure you're going to tell me. You're too nice. You let them walk all over you. Naya, her mother, that whole family treats you like their personal ATM." He wasn't wrong. Over the past year, I'd loaned Aria money for her cryptocurrency opportunities, helped pay for Naya's sister's wedding, and covered the down payment on Naya's new car. Each time, I told myself it was an investment in family harmony. Now, it felt more like paying protection money to people who were planning to rob me anyway. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My phone buzzed. A text from Naya. "Running late, start dinner without me." It was 6:45. Dinner was in 15 minutes, and she was just now telling me she'd be late. I showed the message to Miles. "Let me guess," he said. "Emergency at the gym." I spent the next hour at Aria's dining room table, making small talk with Naya's relatives while picking at overcooked roast beef. Aria held court at the head of the table, dispensing opinions about politics, real estate, and my inadequacies as a provider. "Evan, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "Naya mentioned you might be getting a promotion soon." "It's possible," I said. The promotion was more than possible. It was practically guaranteed. My boss had already hinted that the project manager position was mine if I wanted it, but I'd learned not to share good news with Aria until it was official. She had a way of turning my successes into her expectations. Well, I hope so. Naya deserves security. Aria's eyes glittered with something that might have been malice. Speaking of which, I have an investment opportunity that might interest you. Bryce has been telling me about some cryptocurrency ventures that are absolutely revolutionary. Bryce. There it was. The personal trainer was apparently now a financial advisor, too. I wondered what other services he provided. I'll think about it, I said, which was my standard response to Aria's get-rich-quick schemes. Naya finally arrived at 8:30, breathless and apologetic. Her hair was slightly messed, and she had that glow people get after a good workout, or other forms of exercise. Sorry, she said, kissing her mother's cheek, but barely acknowledging me. Client emergency. You know how it is. I knew how it was, all right. During dessert, I excused myself to use the bathroom and overheard Naya and Aria whispering in the kitchen. Told you to be more careful, Aria was saying. I know, but he's getting suspicious, Naya replied. Maybe we should just tell him about the leverage. Absolutely not. Bryce knows everything now. If Evan finds out before we're ready. I didn't catch the rest, but I'd heard enough. Leverage. Bryce knowing everything. The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't like. When I returned to the dining room, the conversation stopped abruptly. Aria smiled at me with all the warmth of a loan shark. Evan, dear, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about your commitment to this family. The room went quiet. Even Naya's cousins stopped chattering. What kind of commitment? I asked. The kind that shows you're willing to put family first. Before your job, before your friends, before your own selfish interests. Aria's voice had lost its sweetness. I'm talking about the cryptocurrency opportunity. Bryce has connections that could make us all wealthy, but it requires a significant investment. From you. I looked around the table. Everyone was watching me, waiting for my response. Naya wouldn't meet my eyes. How significant? I asked. 50,000, Aria said. To start. $50,000, nearly everything I had in savings. That's a lot of money, I said. It's an investment in our future, Naya said finally. In our family's future. Our family. The same family that had been treating me like an outsider for 2 years. I need to think about it, I said. Aria's expression hardened. Some opportunities don't wait, Evan. Sometimes you have to choose. Are you with this family, or are you against us? The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. I looked at Naya, hoping she'd defend me, tell her mother that ultimatums weren't how families operated. Instead, she nodded slightly. Mom's right, she said. It's time to choose. I felt something shift inside me, like a gear clicking into place. For months, I'd been trying to fix our marriage, to prove myself worthy of their acceptance. But sitting there, looking at their expectant faces, I realized I'd been approaching this all wrong. You're absolutely right, I said, standing up. It is time to choose. I walked to the coat closet and retrieved my jacket. When I turned back, they were all staring at me. I choose me, I said. Thanks for dinner, Aria. It was enlightening. I drove home in silence, my mind already working through the implications. By the time I reached our apartment, I knew what I had to do. The divorce papers were filed online at 11:47 p.m. that night. The retainer fee for the lawyer came to exactly $2,000, a bargain compared to $50,000 for Aria's cryptocurrency scheme. As I submitted the final form, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: relief. The marriage was over, but the real game was just beginning. Naya discovered the divorce papers on a Tuesday morning while I was at work. I know this because she called me 17 times between 9 a.m. and noon, each voicemail more hysterical than the last. I listened to them all during my lunch break, taking notes like I was preparing for a deposition. Evan, what the hell is this? You can't just file for divorce without talking to me first. Actually, I could. I'd checked. This is insane. Call me back right now. I wouldn't. My lawyer says you can't freeze our accounts. This is financial abuse. Her lawyer was wrong. Everything I'd frozen was either solely in my name or required both signatures to access. I'd been very careful about that. The 17th message was the most interesting. Fine. If you want to play games, I can play games too. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I saved that one. It might come in handy later. My phone rang again. This time, it was Miles. "Dude, your wife is at my office," he said. Miles worked as a graphic designer for a small firm downtown. "She's demanding I tell her where you are. She looks like she wants to commit a felony." "Tell her I'm in court," I said. "It's not technically a lie. I filed papers there yesterday." She's crying now, real tears, not the fake kind she usually does. "Don't let her manipulate you. She's good at that." "Already figured that out. Want me to call building security?" "No, let her wear herself out. But maybe record the conversation if she says anything interesting." I hung up and returned to work. The promotion had come through that morning. Senior project manager with a 20% salary increase. The timing was perfect. Higher income meant better positioning in the divorce settlement. That evening, I drove home to our apartment building with a specific plan in mind. I'd spent the afternoon researching moving companies and storage facilities. By the weekend, I'd be living somewhere else entirely. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt different now. This wasn't my home anymore. It was just a place where my stuff happened to be stored temporarily. I opened the apartment door to find Naya waiting in the living room, surrounded by tissues and fury. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't. We need to divide assets and go our separate ways." "Evan, please. This is all a misunderstanding. The thing with Mom, the investment opportunity. I can explain everything." "Can you explain Bryce?" Her face went pale. "What about Bryce?" "You tell me. You're the one who's been working out with him 3 nights a week." "He's my trainer. That's all." "Right. And I'm sure all his clients text him at midnight." I'd seen the messages, not read them. I wasn't that kind of husband. But I'd seen her phone light up with his name often enough to notice a pattern. "You're being paranoid," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe. But I'm also being single. The papers are filed, Naya. This conversation is just delaying the inevitable." She stood up, and for a moment I thought she might try to hit me. Instead, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "You're making a huge mistake," she said. "My family won't let you get away with this. Your family doesn't get a vote." She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I waited 10 minutes, then called the moving company. The next 3 days were a masterpiece of strategic planning. While Naya was at work, I systematically removed everything that belonged to me from the apartment. Furniture we'd bought together stayed, but everything else, my clothes, my books, my electronics, even my coffee maker, disappeared into a storage unit across town. I also made copies of every financial document in our filing cabinet: bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, insurance policies. The paper trail told an interesting story about where our money had been going over the past year. My new apartment was smaller but infinitely more peaceful. A 1-bedroom place in a secure building with underground parking and a doorman who actually checked IDs. The rent was higher, but I could afford it now that I wasn't subsidizing Aria's lifestyle. On Friday afternoon, Naya came home to an empty apartment. I know this because Miles was waiting across the street with a camera, documenting her reaction for potential legal proceedings. The photos showed her standing in the doorway, mouth open, looking like someone had stolen Christmas. The phone calls started immediately. "You took everything. How am I supposed to live here?" "I took my things. Your things are still there." "The couch is yours. The dining table is yours. The television is yours." "I paid for them. They're mine." "This is theft." "No, this is divorce." Get used to it. I hung up and turned off my phone. The weekend was going to be busy. Monday morning brought a new development. Naya had hired a lawyer, not a good one, based on the threatening letter I received. The language was aggressive but legally toothless, demanding I return marital property and cease harassment of his client. I forwarded the letter to my own attorney, Janet Morrison, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Her response was swift and brutal, a detailed accounting of every asset, every debt, and every questionable financial transaction from the past 2 years. Janet had done her homework. The report included Naya's secret credit card, the one she'd been using to pay for personal training sessions, the mysterious cash withdrawals from our joint account, and the loan she'd co-signed with her mother without my knowledge. But the real bombshell was buried on page 7, a private investigator's report documenting Naya's activities over the past month. Photos of her entering Bryce's apartment building. Photos of them together at restaurants I'd never been to. Photos of her leaving his place at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. I stared at the images for a long time, waiting to feel something. Anger, hurt, betrayal. The emotions I thought I should be experiencing. Instead, I felt vindicated. My instincts had been right. The PI's report also included financial information about Bryce and Aria's cryptocurrency venture. Turns out, it wasn't cryptocurrency at all, but a multi-level marketing scheme targeting wealthy divorcees and unhappy wives. Bryce was the recruiter, Aria was the local coordinator, and Naya was supposed to be my entry point into the scam. $50,000. They'd been planning to steal $50,000 from me, and Naya had been willing to destroy our marriage to make it happen. I made copies of everything and prepared for the next phase of my plan. The confrontation came sooner than expected. On Tuesday evening, Aria appeared at my new building, demanding to speak with me. The doorman called up and I told him to let her come up. This conversation needed to happen. She knocked on my door like she was trying to break it down. "Evan, open this door right now." I opened it and stepped back, letting her storm into my living room. She looked around at my sparse furnishings with obvious disgust. "What have you done to my daughter?" she demanded. "I divorced her. It's a legal procedure. You might want to look it up." "You can't just abandon your family." "I can abandon people who were planning to rob me." Her expression shifted slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." I handed her a copy of the PI's report. Page 12 has some interesting photos. Page 15 has the financial records for your MLM scheme. Page 18 has the timeline of Naya's affair. She flipped through the pages, her face growing paler with each revelation. "This is all circumstantial," she said finally. "Maybe, but it's also public record now. Funny how these things spread once they're part of a legal filing." "You wouldn't dare." "I already have. Check your email." I'd sent copies to everyone in Aria's social circle, along with a detailed explanation of the cryptocurrency scam. By now, half of Edgewater Heights knew about Bryce's real occupation and Aria's financial schemes. Aria's phone started buzzing with notifications. She looked at the screen, and her face went white. "You've destroyed us," she whispered. "No," I said. "I've exposed you. There's a difference." She left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. Desperate people do desperate things, and Aria Venton was nothing if not desperate. I double-checked the locks on my door and settled in to wait for their next move. The first sign of retaliation came at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. Someone had keyed my car in the underground garage, scratching deep gouges along both sides. The security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned between 2:30 and 3:15 a.m., according to the building manager. "Probably just random vandalism," he said, but we both knew better. I filed a police report anyway. Paper trails matter in situations like this. The second sign came the next day at work. My boss, Jennifer Hayes, called me into her office with a concerned expression. "Evan, I got a strange phone call this morning," she said. "Someone claiming to be your wife said you'd been stealing from the company." My soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected, and I haven't stolen anything. I know that. Your work here has been exemplary, but she seemed very upset, very convinced that you were embezzling funds. I sighed. She's trying to sabotage my career. It's part of the divorce strategy. Well, it's not going to work, but you should know she also called HR and made some wild accusations about harassment and workplace misconduct. All false, I assume. Obviously. But you might want to document everything just in case this escalates. It was already escalating. That evening, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. You think you're so smart. We'll see about that. A friend. The handwriting looked like Bryce's, based on the gym membership forms I'd seen in Naya's purse. Apparently, the personal trainer was branching out into intimidation services. I called Miles and asked him to come over. If things were going to get physical, I wanted a witness. This is getting serious, he said, examining the note. Maybe you should back off. Back off from what? Getting divorced? Protecting my assets? They're the ones who escalated this. Yeah, but they're also desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. He was right, but backing down wasn't an option. I'd come too far to let Aria and her crew intimidate me into submission. The next morning brought a new development. Janet Morrison called with news from the legal front. They're fighting the asset freeze, she said. Naya's lawyer is claiming financial hardship. She has a job. She can support herself. That's what I told them. But there's something else. They're demanding access to your financial records, claiming you've been hiding assets. Let them look. I've got nothing to hide. Good, because they're also threatening to countersue for emotional distress and defamation. Based on what? The PI report you shared. They're saying it violates their privacy. I laughed. They were planning to steal $50,000 from me, and they're worried about privacy. Just be careful, Evan. Don't give them any ammunition. Too late for that. I'd already loaded the cannon. That afternoon, I decided to take a more direct approach. Bryce worked at an upscale gym called Elite Fitness, the kind of place where wealthy housewives went to feel better about their lives. I'd never been there, but I had a guest pass courtesy of Naya's membership. The gym was exactly what I'd expected. Gleaming equipment, motivational posters, and enough mirrors to make a narcissist dizzy. I found Bryce in the weight room, spotting a woman who looked old enough to be his mother but was dressed like she was 25. He saw me approaching and his expression shifted from professional friendliness to barely concealed hostility. "Can I help you?" he said, not moving away from his client. "We need to talk," I said. "I'm working. This won't take long." The woman looked between us, sensing tension. "Should I call someone?" she asked. "No need," I said. "This is just a friendly conversation between adults." Bryce excused himself and led me to a corner of the gym where we could speak privately. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble," he said. "Then you shouldn't have gotten involved with my wife. That's between you and Naya. And the cryptocurrency scam? That's between you and the SEC, I suppose." His face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Just like you don't know about the photos, or the financial records, or the paper trail that leads directly back to you and Aria. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to share what I know with the right people. Your employer, for instance. I wonder how Elite Fitness would feel about their trainers running investment scams on the side." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed him a draft email addressed to the gym's management. The subject line read, "Concerns about employee conduct." "Try me," I said. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then looked up at me with something approaching respect. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife, stop harassing me, and find a new line of work, preferably in another city." "And if I don't?" "Then everyone in town will know exactly what kind of personal training you provide." I sent the email while he watched. His phone buzzed with a notification from the gym's HR department. "You're making a mistake," he said. but his voice lacked conviction. The mistake was trusting people who never deserved it. I won't make that error again. I left him standing there, surrounded by mirrors that reflected his failures from every angle. The retaliation was swift and predictable. That evening, I found my car vandalized again, this time with sugar in the gas tank and profanity spray-painted across the windshield. But I was ready for it. Hidden cameras I'd installed in the garage caught everything, including clear shots of Bryce's face as he committed the crimes. The video went viral within hours. I posted it on social media with the caption, "When personal trainers provide automotive services." The comments section filled with laughter and outrage, turning Bryce into a local laughingstock. By morning, Elite Fitness had terminated his employment. By afternoon, 3 of his other clients had filed complaints with the Better Business Bureau. By evening, he was trending on local social media as Drash Sugar Tank Bryce. Naya called me that night, screaming about humiliation and revenge. "You've ruined him," she said. "He ruined himself. I just provided documentation." "This isn't over, Evan. My family won't let you get away with this." "Your family is welcome to try, but they might want to check their own legal situation first." I hung up and checked my security cameras. Everything was quiet, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way. The war was just beginning. The courthouse steps felt like a stage, and I was about to give the performance of my lifetime. Janet Morrison stood beside me, briefcase in hand, ready to serve papers that would change everything. "Are you sure about this?" she asked one final time. "Absolutely," I said. "It's time to end this." The papers we were serving would freeze all of Aria's assets, expose the MLM scheme to federal investigators, and force a public accounting of every dollar that had flowed through their network. More importantly, it would trigger automatic investigations by the IRS, the SEC, and the State Attorney General's office. Aria arrived at the courthouse looking confident, flanked by her lawyer and 2 family members I didn't recognize. She saw me waiting and her expression shifted from confidence to concern. "Mrs. Venton," Janet said, approaching with the papers. "You've been served." Aria's lawyer took the documents and began reading. His face went through several color changes as he processed the contents. "This is harassment," he said finally. "Pure and simple harassment." "No," Janet replied. "This is justice. Your client has been running an illegal investment scheme, and my client has the documentation to prove it." The scene attracted attention from other people on the courthouse steps. Phones came out, recording everything. By evening, the confrontation would be all over social media. "You can't do this," Aria said, her voice rising. "I'll fight you in court." "You're welcome to try," I said, "but you might want to save your money for legal fees. You're going to need them." The papers included a detailed timeline of the cryptocurrency scam, complete with bank records, email communications, and witness statements. Everything Aria had built over the past 2 years was about to collapse. Her phone started buzzing with notifications as news of the lawsuit spread through her social network. Former friends and business associates began distancing themselves, posting on social media about their own concerns regarding Aria's investment advice. "This is all lies!" Aria shouted, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "He's a vindictive man trying to destroy his wife's family." "Then explain these bank records," Janet said, handing over a thick folder. "Explain the fake cryptocurrency wallets. Explain why your investment returns came from new investor deposits instead of actual profits." Aria's lawyer was speed reading through the documents, his expression growing more troubled with each page. "We need to discuss this privately," he told his client. "No!" Aria snapped. "I want everyone to hear this. This man is trying to ruin us because his wife found someone better." The crowd was growing larger. Someone had started live streaming the confrontation, and viewers were commenting in real time. The hashtag #CryptoScamMom was already trending locally. "Mrs. Venton," I said, stepping forward, "you had a choice. You could have treated me with respect, been honest about your financial situation, and supported your daughter's marriage. Instead, You chose to run a scam, manipulate your daughter, and steal from people who trusted you. I never stole anything. Then where's the cryptocurrency? Show us the wallets. Prove the investments exist. She couldn't, because they didn't exist. The entire scheme had been smoke and mirrors, designed to separate wealthy people from their money. Her lawyer was pulling her aside, trying to get her to stop talking, but Aria was beyond reason now. You think you're so smart, she screamed, but you don't know everything. There are things about your precious wife that would shock you. Like her affair with Bryce? I know about that. Like the forged signatures on loan applications? I know about that too. Like the secret credit cards she opened in my name? Yeah, I know about those as well. Each revelation hit like a physical blow. Aria's supporters were backing away, realizing they'd been defending the wrong side. You're lying, she said, but her voice was weaker now. Am I? Then explain this. I pulled out my phone and played a recording of Naya's voice, captured during one of her angry phone calls. The plan was perfect until Evan got suspicious. Now Bryce is panicking and Mom's investors are asking questions. We should have just taken the $50,000 and disappeared. The crowd went silent. Even the live stream comments stopped for a moment. That's illegal recording, Aria's lawyer said. Actually, it's not, Janet replied. Single-party consent state, and it's evidence of criminal conspiracy. Aria looked around at the faces surrounding her, former friends, business associates, family members, and saw nothing but judgment and disgust. This isn't over, she said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. Yes, it is, I replied. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit will be contacting you this afternoon. The IRS will be auditing your returns going back 5 years, and every person you scammed will be getting copies of these documents. She turned and walked away, her lawyer hurrying to catch up. The crowd began to disperse, but the phones kept recording. That evening, the story exploded across social media. Just Crypto Scam Mom was trending statewide. Local news stations picked up the story. The Better Business Bureau issued a warning about cryptocurrency investment schemes targeting wealthy families. Naya called me at midnight sobbing. You've destroyed everything, she said. I've exposed everything. There's a difference. My mother's reputation is ruined. Her friends won't speak to her. She might go to prison. She might. That's what happens when you run illegal investment schemes. And what about me? What about us? There is no us, Naya. There hasn't been for a long time. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose your family's scam over our marriage. You chose Bryce over me. You chose $50,000 over our future. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I give you the money, you disappear with Bryce, and I never figure out what happened. She was quiet for a long moment. I never meant to hurt you, she said finally. But you did hurt me, and now you're facing the consequences. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I could sleep peacefully for the first time in months. The war was almost over. The public auction was Aria's last desperate gamble. Facing bankruptcy and criminal charges, she'd decided to liquidate her assets and flee the state. What she didn't know was that I'd been tracking her financial moves for weeks, and I had one final surprise waiting. The auction was held in the Civic Center, a cavernous space that echoed with the voices of bargain hunters and curiosity seekers. News of Aria's downfall had spread throughout the community, and people came as much for the spectacle as for the merchandise. I arrived early and positioned myself near the front, where everyone could see me. Miles sat beside me, recording everything on his phone for posterity. Are you sure about this? He asked. This ends today, I said. One way or another. Aria appeared at 10 a.m. sharp, flanked by her remaining family members and looking like she hadn't slept in days. She saw me immediately and her face twisted with rage. You! She pointed at me across the crowded room. This is all your fault! The auctioneer, a professional who'd clearly dealt with emotional sellers before, tried to maintain order. Ma'am, please take your seat. We'll be starting shortly. But Aria was beyond reason. She marched over to where I was sitting, her family trailing behind her like reluctant bodyguards. You think you've won? She said, loud enough for half the room to hear. You think destroying my family makes you some kind of hero? I think exposing criminals makes me a good citizen, I replied calmly. The crowd was watching now, phones out, recording every word. This was better than reality TV. You want to know the truth? Aria shouted. Your precious wife never loved you. She was using you from the beginning. The whole marriage was a setup. I know, I said. I've known for months. That stopped her cold. What? Did you really think I was that stupid? The late nights, the secret meetings, the mysterious expenses, I documented everything. I pulled out a tablet and connected it to the auction house's display system. The auctioneer tried to object, but the crowd was too interested to let him interfere. The first image that appeared on the giant screen was a timeline of Naya's affair, complete with photos, dates, and locations. The crowd gasped and murmured as the evidence unfolded. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, standing up and addressing the room like a prosecutor, I present the Venton family business model. Step 1. Identify wealthy, lonely targets. Step 2. Seduce them into marriage or investment schemes. Step 3. Steal everything they have. The next slides showed the cryptocurrency scam in detail. Fake websites, forged documents, testimonials from non-existent investors. Naya's job was to convince me to invest $50,000 in this scheme. When that failed, they moved to Plan B, destroy my reputation and take everything in the divorce. Aria was backing away now, realizing that she'd walked into a trap. But here's what they didn't count on, I continued, advancing the presentation. I'm not just a construction project manager. I'm a forensic accountant by training. I know how to follow money trails. The final slides showed the complete financial network, shell companies, fake identities, offshore accounts. Everything Aria had built over the past 5 years was laid out in excruciating detail. The FBI estimates that the Venton family has stolen over $2 million from victims across 3 states, I announced, and every penny is documented right here. The crowd erupted in shocked conversations. Several people were calling the police. Others were calling local news stations. Aria was screaming now, but her words were lost in the chaos. Her family members were abandoning her, slipping out of the building before they could be associated with the scandal. That's when Bryce made his entrance. The former personal trainer burst through the main doors, clearly agitated and probably under the influence of something stronger than protein powder. Where is he? Bryce shouted. Where's the little man who ruined my life? He spotted me near the front and charged forward, pushing through the crowd like a linebacker. You destroyed everything, he yelled, reaching for me with hands that could probably bench press a small car. But I was ready for him. As he lunged forward, I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him straight into the display table. He crashed through a collection of Aria's crystal figurines, sending glass flying everywhere. The crowd scattered, giving us plenty of room for the confrontation. Bryce struggled to his feet, bleeding from several small cuts, and looking even more enraged. I'm going to tear you apart, he said. No, I replied, pulling out my phone. You're going to get arrested. The video I'd just recorded showed Bryce clearly committing assault in front of 50 witnesses. But more importantly, it showed him admitting to crimes that could put him in prison for years. You want to confess to anything else while the cameras are rolling? I asked. He looked around and realized that every phone in the building was pointed at him. His rage deflated into panic. This isn't over, he said, but he was already backing toward the exit. Actually, it is, I said. Security footage from your gym shows you selling drugs to clients. The IRS has records of unreported income from your various scams, and 3 different women have filed complaints about your personal training methods. He ran, literally turned around and sprinted out of the building, leaving a trail of crystal fragments and his dignity behind. The police arrived 10 minutes later, but there wasn't much left to investigate. Aria had collapsed into a chair, surrounded by evidence of her crimes and abandoned by everyone she'd counted on. "You've won," she said quietly as the officers approached her. "Are you happy now?" I looked down at the woman who'd tried to destroy my life, who'd turned her own daughter into a weapon against me, who'd stolen from dozens of innocent people. "I'm satisfied," I said. "There's a difference." As they led Aria away in handcuffs, Naya appeared at the back of the room. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the collapse of everything she'd believed in. Our eyes met across the chaos, and for a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the $50,000, the forged signatures, the lies and betrayals, and calculated cruelty. The pity faded. I walked past her without a word and out into the afternoon sunshine, where Miles was waiting with a grin that could have powered the building. "So," he said, "what do you want to do now?" I thought about it for a moment. For the first time in months, I had no plans, no schemes, no revenge to plot. The war was over, and I'd won more completely than I'd ever imagined possible. "Now," I said, "I want to go home and take a very long nap." We walked to my car, the new one I'd bought to replace the vandalized vehicle, and drove away from the wreckage of my old life. Behind us, the auction house was still buzzing with activity as people processed what they'd witnessed. The story would spread through social media, local news, and coffee shop gossip for weeks to come. But that was their story now, not mine. I was finally free.